Hello and welcome to the Go Creative podcast and this week's episode, which is creative writing. And I am delighted to be able to introduce to you the person who's going to be our regular contributor on how writers connect with their audience. Dan Blank of We Grow Media is the man for this information. Hi, Dan.
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm really excited about this, so I appreciate the invite.
It's great. I'm really delighted that you're going to be free to come along once a month and talk to us about that key sort of question. Because I think no matter how you decide, to get to your audience, to get to your readers, to reach your readers, it remains a question, no matter what stage of your writing career you're at, no matter how you're actually putting the books out there, whether you're trade published, whether you're self-publishing, whether you're doing some combination, whatever it is. It's always the key question. How do I reach more readers? How do I reach the readers that I have better? And one of the reasons that I'm absolutely thrilled that you're going to be our regular contributor on these topics is because of the way that you always focus not just on the quantity of reader connection, but the quality. You're always talking about keeping things real and keeping things meaningful. And I really love that. So can we start today, kick off with a question of what you call setting goals, what I call setting creative intentions. Talk to us a little bit about writers and goal setting.
So writers exist in this place that is partly personal and partly professional, and it varies to degree with each one. I often find that for the professional portion, many people, when they talk about their goals, they are pathetically undeveloped. They are the broadest sketches possible. And they often say something like, oh, I want to get published. Or it's like, oh, I want to be a bestseller. Or, I just want to inspire people. And that in of itself is the beginning and end of their goals. And from there, they try to craft what is a very complex set of strategies and tactics to live up to those things. So I want to talk about it in a couple different ways. I love your phrase of intention. It's very forward thinking, and I think that it gets the right tone. The first way I think about this is the idea of milestones you want to reach. So what most people call goals, I often think of as milestones. Like publishing a book is a very important milestone, like graduating college. But just publishing that book doesn't mean that you'll be fulfilled or satisfied or earn money or get a readership. It is merely a milestone in a bigger process. So that's not really a goal as most people see it. And I think that when you're aware of that, it allows you to ask that question of what experience do I want to have for myself? What experience do I want to create for other people? And to me, that's where the secret of goals really lies.
Okay, I mean, there's so much there already that I'd like to kind of pick apart. So this idea of milestones and goals and steps also, I think you're talking about there, and they're kind of lurking there in the background. A lot of writers resist the idea of, are you a proponent of the SMART goal thing? The specific and blah, blah, blah. I can't even remember what they are. I am around that acronym. And that very sort of set way of thinking about a goal and making sure it ticks all the boxes. Is that something that you would recommend for writers? Or is that a bit too left brain analytical?
To a degree, because I think one thing that plays in and we don't talk enough about is emotion. Is how often we're driven by this sense of emotion. And we can't always be honest with ourselves about it. It's sort of like the same with analytics, where I'm enough of a proponent of saying, yeah, look at your newsletter data and your Facebook data and your web data. But I've also seen so many people go too far with that, where they give me this spreadsheet of data. And I'm like, yeah, but like, are you happy? Do you have any readers? And they're like, well, no, but look at all this data. And it's like, all right, I think we've missed something between these two things.
Yeah, absolutely. So are you happy? Do you have readers? Which do you put first?
Well, I mean, I think that's why I hit upon that word experiences, where a lot of times it's this idea of you can measure, there's almost measuring like qualitative experiences. So one thing I'll do with authors is talk about connecting with readers and having, Have you spoken to 3 members of your audience this week? Have you had a conversation? Have you had something meaningful? So a lot of people, myself included, we were sort of early adopters of Twitter. We hit that point where Twitter got to be a fire hose and it felt less formal, more businessy, where it kind of fell off. And one way of turning that around with all of social media is thinking of, have you had 3 meaningful interactions this week? So there's a sense where there's data in there because it's a number of 3. So you have that thing of did I do? You can imagine a chart in your wall and you check it off with little star stickers and a happy face.
I love all that stuff. I have the Go Creative Maps on the website for downloading, which does that kind of thing. And 3 I find is great figure. Everything for me is either 3 or 7. But anyway, keep going.
And then there's that sense of subjective emotional sense, which is, yeah, I had 3 great conversations this week, or I got 3 responses back to this question, or I pushed myself to send out 3 requests to people for interviews, where it's not purely analytical because it's not this kind of sense of what is the result? You know, what's the ROI? And it's like, as part of that ROI is the experience is, did you affect someone in a positive way? And that could be I entertained them, I changed their belief in something, I gave them hope. But then it's also for you, which is feeling like, wow, I'm a writer, you know, or yeah, my focus is this memoir, but my memoir, you know, it's really about having young women, you know, feel they have confidence. Your book could be the big primary way you do that, but there's also 1,000 other ways you can do that. So it gives you another way to break into it. And I think that's where this idea of goals and milestones become kind of smaller actions that seem more reasonable to us. And again, where you marry that thing of subjective, emotional stuff with kind of data, which is this idea of like having, like we said, like weekly goals. And I think also is this idea of something I like, which is monthly and quarterly assessments. We have a lot of different tips of things we're trying to do. I think if you say, I'm going to check in every quarter, I'm going to put on my calendar, I'm going to check in on the strategy I'm pursuing, and I'm going to go to Starbucks for 3 hours and get a big sugary muffin and a big latte. I'm going to just review this every 3 months. That alone, again, is more than most people do when attending to their goals and milestones. Most people say, I'm a best-selling author. Then 5 years later, they're like, what happened? You know, like, where did I go off the rails?
I love what you're saying about social media being, and this is something we say all the time to the self-publishing authors who are members of Ally and who follow our self-publishing advice center stuff, is that, you know, your tweets, your Facebook status updates, hello, that is writing too. And what you were talking there about the emotional connection you want to get with your reader, I think it's a really good idea to look at the emotional connection that your books are aiming to create in the reader, and then to try and, you know, reflect that without getting too sort of narrow and linear about it, but to try to induce that sort of emotion in the reader of your status update, or the reader of your tweets or whatever, so that you're returning to, you know, the goal that I think we haven't talked about yet, and that an awful lot of writers don't talk about, which is, you know, the goal I'm hoping to achieve by being a writer. What is being a writer going to deliver for me? Why do I want to be a writer? What emotional sort of payoff am I looking for in my life? What do I think it will do? And so on. Do you have those kinds of conversations?
Oh, absolutely. One is a question or something I'll say to writers. I was at the Writers Digest conference recently and speaking in a room of a couple hundred people. And I said, like, you know, you get to make this choice if writing is just a hobby for you, or if it's a profession. If it's a profession, it's a business. You've got to take it into a different lens. I grew up as an artist, and I'm a fervent believer in this idea that you can just do art, do writing for the sake of writing. And you can even publish or share it in a small way if you feel that's also good. I've done so many art projects that I did for the journey. I did because I want to experience this. Even if I dreamed a little bit like, wow, it'd be great if this is some weird breakout, whatever, it was an expectation. I have tons of art projects that are in my attic, this 100-year-old attic upstairs, boxed away, because the goal was never to share it, to publish it, to make it a business. It was something I pursued for self-fulfillment. And then I think you can kind of have a middle ground, which is I want a book, but really I want to be like before, like I want to just be, helping young women have confidence, and you could have a whole platform around that where a book could be part of it, writing could be part of it, but your mission is not, I want to be a writer. Your mission is this other thing where writing's a part of it. And then there's people where I think, as I think you're indicating, you want to be a writer, but you have to think about what is that experience. And I think there you have to also do your research. A lot of people say I want to be a professional writer, and they make a lot of assumptions that if I do it right, I should be able to just write a book every 2 years and be 100% paid, earn $100,000 a year, and live fervently off that, just off of that. And I think if you talk to a lot of writers who are full-time writers, you'll find their life looks very different than that. They teach retreats, they do spec writing, they do all kinds of things. It's more multifaceted. So if that's what your goal is, you have to do that research to see what it looks like for other people who are doing that.
When we talk about research, we talk about three kinds. Research, as we think of it, kind of looking things up on the internet or in the library or wherever, but also research of memory, which is kind of looking back through past experiences and understanding where writing connects with all of that, and research of the imagination, so the kind of what ifs, if this happened, what would that look like, and so on. Because I think once we get into the language of goals, and this is my fear is the wrong word, but this is my slight discomfort with goals and creative work. Not that I don't think we need them, we absolutely do, but that people, once you bring up goal setting, it's like they suddenly throw creativity away and get serious, think they have to be very businesslike and, move into a different sort of, just take off one hat and put on another. What do you think about that? I mean, do we?
It's such a great question. I think that usually screws things up for people because they're now trying to live up to this model. They have that professional voice. Like their website gets really boring, their bio gets boring, their author photo gets boring. Everything gets boring because they're trying to be professional. And I think it goes back to that idea of experience. For research, I like what I guess I would call primary research of just talking to people. I think I am online a lot, but like call people, buy them lunch, interview them, do what you're doing here, do that kind of research. And I think with the idea of goals and professionalism is you get to define that. How many people have we seen? Thinking of Hugh Howey for some reason, because I see so many of his updates where their definition of success and of goals is unique to them. And any author kind of has that. And I think that's what we admire about people, about J.K. Rowling and how she kind of has her life. And that's part of it. You don't want it to be professional in a way where you're now fitting yourself into a box because it feels like this is the path to success. But professional more in that you have processes in place, you have collaborators in place, and you just treat it with a sense of seriousness that a professional would.
And that you meet the standards that are necessary for a reader to enjoy your book with ease, which means the basics. And forgive me, but we always need to kind of remind people that they do need editors, they do need to work with designers, they do need to, that even the most independent-minded self-publisher is not an island, and no good book is ever produced by just one person. There is always a whole, if not a village, a whole world behind every book. We only get 10 minutes and we could talk for 10 days. So I would like to just kind of wrap up by asking you for your top 3 tips. And I'll do this every month when we speak. Your top 3 ideas around what people absolutely should be doing around setting good goals and reaching them.
Okay, so 3 things are: find 10 people that are doing what you want to do and talk to them. Buy them lunch, some kind of long-form conversation, however you can do it. Hear from them. Number 2 is a lot of this is about establishing really good habits. So I think that this idea of establishing a daily or weekly or monthly or quarterly or yearly habits or ranges of them is very important. And the 3rd is get collaborators. In some way, shape, or form, get collaborators. This can be, as you said, I'm hiring an editor, but for a lot of people it can be a writing partner. I hire interns every year, and these are people that work 5 or 10 hours a week for me. It's not a huge commitment for them or for me. I have a lot of colleagues and friends that we will call regularly. I run a mastermind group. There are all kinds of ways of building collaboration into what you do. And I think that it helps you treat this more professionally, but it also helps you talk through what it is you want and how to get there, instead of how a lot of us fail, which is it's so much in our own minds that we're crushed under the weight of our own expectations and all we feel we have to do and all that we don't know.
Fantastic. And I will just add to that a lot of this is learning by doing, and don't wait till you have all the ducks in a row. Just leap in and do something. So do something that Dan has recommended this month, today or tomorrow. Okay, Dan, I know everybody's going to want to follow up with you. And next month, we will talk about those habits and how to turn things from, the goal into something more concrete. But if people want to get in touch with you in the meantime, and if you have anything that you can offer them in terms of, I know you've all sorts of useful things that you have on your website and so on, tell people how they can reach you.
Yeah, I mean, my site is wegrowmedia.com. A weekly newsletter, of course, and all the normal social media links there. Start there. There's a almost 10-year archive of blog posts between that and my older site. But then reach out to me. I've got contact information right on the site. If you have a question, tweet at me or shoot me an email. I'm always happy to help.
You're fantastically available to people and wonderful. And thank you so much for being available to the Go Creative audience. And look forward to chatting again next month.
Thank you so much. Have a great one.
You too.